Hey everyone, welcome again on Talk Through Thursday. Today we are diving into a fascinating journey with someone who's transformed adversity to empowerment. Meet Deepti Ji. Hi Deepti Ji, how are you? How have you
Hi,
been?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And guys, let me tell you, she is a powerhouse in image management because she's not just reshaping the appearances, but also lives, helping countless individuals align in their inner and outer selves for success. So get comfortable and join us as we dive into Deepti Ji's world of empowerment and self discovery. Trust me, you won't want to miss this candid conversation today. So, Deepti ji, walking down the memory lane, if we start with the nostalgic moment, can you share a childhood memory that still makes you smile?
Oh, having said that, most part of my childhood, because I think it has gone in education and back in the day, you were not doing extracurricular, but there were two or three things, that back then I've always been like a plus size kid. When I say plus size, like plus size kid. Yeah. So with a lot that happened during my growing up years, I think I'm very grateful to my mom that she put me through, certain activities which I hated. Like I swear I hated back then. So one was a Bharatanatyam class and one was a swimming class in school and then cycling, of course, right? I think because she couldn't do it in her time, so she wanted to live those, moments through her
Yeah.
daughters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a big fear of swimming, like big as in like I still laugh. It's like a family joke. Like when we ever go out swimming, it's like I used to make, excuses like, oh, I'm getting a stomach ache, my head is hurting, I'm going to vomit the minute I would be looking at the pool, right? So it was, I don't know what fear was that, but it was. And then subsequently, of course, it came off. And today I am a water baby. Like you show me water and I'm just right there. Like, so
Wow.
I'm so grateful that she just put me through that activity. I think the same thing was dancing, though I love dancing today. Like it's a very big part of my personality that I love to dance and sing and things like that. So that is something that I like, and I think as a speaker that always comes in handy, like the rhythm and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think those habits kind of got formed, but I still to this day laugh about how these things were fear, like once upon a time. And I think these have become one of my strengths today. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I have really lived through fearfully, but yeah, not anymore. So that's thanks for asking and reminding me of those days. But yeah.
But thank you for sharing because I mean, this is something unusual that somebody just fears dancing. I mean, I can
Yeah, I
relate
mean, it
to
was
that.
class. So for me, Barka, it was, I think now, because I'm also talking about these things to, through years to clients, I think it was also a lot of insecurity with, your weight size because you're much bigger than an average child. And, also back then, that whole thing of having didis dancing around you who still look, they're older than you, but they look smaller than you in frame. So I'm guessing it was also that I don't want to call it a phobia, but I think also as a child, the way maybe, we were raised back then, a very protective environment. And I was initially very scared, I think because I was heavier in weight, that people couldn't catch me if I jump from somewhere. So I had those height, phobias and things like that. So, in that protectiveness, everybody said, huh, she will fear this, don't do this, she'll fall, she'll do this, she'll do that. So I think that kind of conditions you to believe that you're probably not capable of doing things. So I think it came from there, and that goes manifold. And then I started fearing dancing in a group of people. Though I know that my sister and everybody danced on stage, I think I either had an excuse or then probably something or the other came up. Like once I fell down just before a show, so I couldn't perform. So I didn't do any kind of public appearances in dancing. So swimming again, it was like an open air
Yeah.
thing, and then everybody's looking at you. Like the whole fear that everyone's going to look at you,
Yeah.
and then somewhere, even as a child, I don't think children ever think about how big they feel, but I think people around you kind of make you feel
You
like,
don't want to
you're
get
a bigger
judged
child.
at that point. Of
I don't think as a child I ever thought that I was being judged
yeah.
till things were said to me. So yeah, I think once they were said to me, then it's like you cannot unsay it, and then it just keeps playing as a record in your head, and then you feel that, oh, you're a chubby child, you're a bigger child, and
Mm.
then jokes that people make that, oh, you will sink in water and things like that. So that fear kind of develops. However, I mean, the narrative is that when you're heavier, you actually float on water. And it took me so much time. I actually had a coach, and he started talking to me the time he took me into the deeper side, and I was really fearful. And he asked me, why are you so scared? I said, because I'll sink, right? Because I'm so heavy, I'll sink. He said, are you crazy? I mean, the more heavier you are, the more you're going to float on water. And I think that was my moment, or I don't know, it was like a revelation to me that, oh, okay, it's not too bad to be heavy because I'm going to float. Right. And I think that was that break even point for me where I started swimming. And I mean, now in a pool, if somebody's scared, I can get their fear out like this, and I can teach them a couple of strokes. Like I've done that with a lot of people who are fearful, and teach them how to
I
swim.
would want those swimming
Yeah.
classes with you.
That's great.
Yeah,
We'll meet and we'll plan like
that's
a get
fun.
rid of swimming fear session.
True. So, firstly, I would want to give three claps for you because you
Thank you.
literally stood up for yourself and you faced everything, and here you are today telling us all about it. I mean, with the smile. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So brave of you.
Thanks. And
Yeah.
work in progress.
We're all work in progress. It's life.
Absolutely.
So, looking back at your journey from dealing with bullying, like you just mentioned, to becoming an accomplished image and grooming coach, how did those early experiences shaped your passion for helping others through image management? How was that like?
Okay, so that's going to be a little tricky because as a lot of people might think that the minute image happened to me, it probably came to me that, oh, all of this was bullying. But I think back in the day there was no such thing like awareness around body shaming, bullying, and things like that. And I grew up in Delhi, where it's a very common factor for random people to just pass you by and say things like nasty things. And I think over a period of time, when someone goes through something as serious as that, it just leaves you with scars which keep deepening, right? And you don't talk to anybody about it, right? So for me, I have lived the longest part of my life as a tomboy, which I mean, I even tell my batches when I'm training them, and everybody's like, "Oh, really?" Because it's very hard to tell. So it's like I said, it's a lot of work to have shown people who you really are, but always living in that mask where you project yourself to be a very strong, aggressive person just because nobody should take you for granted. Right. So that's how I have lived the longest part of my childhood. I still remember. And when I moved to Pune again, I was by myself, and I was taught to be independent very early. Like I moved out of my house when I was 16. Right. So even then, when something happened, I really didn't have anyone to fall back on and discuss things. So I taught myself to combat. So like wearing a mask of being very strong and combat everything that came your way. Picked up a job very early, and all of these things kind of kept me busy, and they made me forget that there was really a deeper underlying issue. And when image management happened to me, like it's a long story, but there was this transformation program that I used to watch, and the corporates that I used to work at. There was a lot of focus initially when I started my job on the way you were dressed, and you had to be very prim, proper, formally dressed. And over a period of time, I've spent 8 years in the corporate, in the contact center domain, and I saw the whole dilution of how it was always from when I got hired to how you should present yourself, and it just went down the drain to we don't want any kind of attrition. We don't want people to leave, let them wear whatever they want. And how that kind of sidetracked people, their mind was completely off for the job, and how it kind of had an effect. And parallelly, I was watching this show on transformations, and we used to discuss that somebody needs to do this in India. Little did I know I would be that somebody, but
Oh,
it just happened, and it was my interest. So like creativity and all of that, which, like I said, I had kept it under wraps because I didn't think that it was the right time to express that that is who I wanted to be. And yeah, I think in the right time, all my experiences led me to where I am today. And I feel really grateful that slowly or gradually, willingly or unwillingly, they did lead me where I am. And I think only after Image, when I did my program, and a few years down, not even immediately, but a few years down, when I started helping other people more than just helping, applying it to myself, it occurred to me later with people's experiences that, oh, probably even I have been dealing with, body image issues, or
Yeah.
the way people have spoken about my body, or, the good, bad things that they've said, how that has shaped me as a person. Right. So it has taken a lot of work to even figure that that part of my life was bullying. And I can relate to a lot of people who go with it because they don't know that they are being bullied. Right. It's a very sensitive thing. Today, at least, there's a lot of awareness. And I would say a lot of people openly talk about it. Yeah, the typical term of coming out and all of that. I really don't think back in the day anybody would have said it's a big deal. I mean, sabke saath hota hai, that's the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
thing that you
that's
were
what
told and you
we
were shut
get,
down.
of course,
Right. And
in those
yeah,
days.
you just have to deal with it. But I think it is so much to deal with on a psychological level that it changes you completely. Sometimes people just become very reclusive with the way it affects you. Thankfully for me, it didn't happen that way. But unfortunately for me, I started retaliating as as a downside of it, to everything, like reacting to everything. I became, in school, I still remember, I became a bully because I got bullied outside. And because I would say that I was an intelligent kid, so I was always a teacher's pet. I became a prefect, monitor, whatever, so power was with me. Right. So I used to start exerting control because somebody else was doing that to me. So that was my, way of taking revenge, so to speak. That is something that I came to know now. Like after, in the last, I would say in the last 10 or 12 years, I figured this out for myself. That this is how I kind of did wrong to other people, which of course I regret today. But yeah, I mean, because as a kid, you don't know, right, what is the right or the wrong thing to do.
We
So
didn't
yeah, I
know
mean,
those technical terms then at that
you
time.
didn't know. Of course, you didn't. And you didn't even know that it was affecting your body image, your confidence level. So, what I was projecting is overconfidence
It
to
was
just
just a
mask.
shield you made for yourself so
Absolutely.
that you don't get
So,
affected. But yeah,
and you don't show your vulnerability. I think being vulnerable is such a look down upon quality, especially where we are. Like people don't want you to be vulnerable, and I think especially as women, I would say as women of education, or if you are a go-getter, ambitious, then all that you feel is, okay, if I look vulnerable, people are not going to trust me enough, or they are not going to think I'm worthy enough. So you're constantly wearing this mask. But I think someday, you're going to break down, and that's going to be bad. So it is better that you just accept your vulnerability as it comes. I mean, have a good cry, maybe in
yeah, and take it.
isolation or with a friend. Yeah, doesn't really matter, but you just really need to address these issues because they can pile up. And what's going to happen? One day you're going to burst like a volcano, and that's going to cause mass destruction. So it is just better that you keep it, like create smaller fissures that can just help you let the gas pass out as and when you're feeling that energy. I think that's better. So yeah, definitely this whole program that I have done on myself, on others, that definitely has
I
helped quite a
agree.
lot. Not just on the outside, because I mean people just feel as a consultant, it's just the clothes that you wear or the way you look, but it is so much more deeper.
Yeah, inside out is
But
the.
yeah, it's an inside out process, absolutely.
So, of course, these are all experiences which comes with
Mhm.
life and we grow and you choose to grow and that is something happening. So, switching gears from corporate roles, like you mentioned, you have had 12 years of experience in corporate, right?
Thank
So,
you.
Persona Star's image management must have been a big move for you because from where you
Was.
came to where you are today, you inspired a lot of people out there. So, what inspired you to make that shift, and how did you navigate this career change? Like, what happened?
So,
And
like I said, this whole time when I was into the corporate, when I started jobs, and the way your appearance, your presentability was given so much value, and I grew pretty quickly in the organization, and I did have these conversations, and it just started, my end of the corporate career and image management kind of overlapped because I started with my course while I was working, but because I was in a leadership profile, I was working 15, 16 hours, so I couldn't really balance the two together. And at that time, I had seen that our dress codes had, taken a terrible hit. I mean, I started my course in 2010 in September, and I would say between end of 2008 and 2010, in that phase, I have seen such a big hit on the dress code policy, the attitude and behavior of people, the kind of biases that people have had while I was, growing, and I mean, to say it, openly, I was one of the only female employees amongst the 8 or 10, applications for a team leader position we had back then. Now, of course, because I was a little more tomboyish and, I had a little bit of authority and stuff like that. I don't know if they kind of stereotype me into the usual women and stuff like that. But I was pretty positive I'll make it on caliber, right? But the unfortunate part in the corporate is that even if you grow, right, even if you grow pretty quickly, you know how they would kind of characterize you and say that, oh, you must have done this, you must have done that. Luckily for me, because I did not come with any such tags, being a tomboy, so nobody could pinpoint a finger as to how
True.
this happened. And then, of course, nobody used to mess around with me. But the fun fact also was, while I was doing the course, like it was very initial and I was in a process of exiting. Fun fact is that there were a lot of other people, like other leaders around me. And when we used to discuss about dress codes, because I've seen people wear like capris and come to office, which was like an absolute no for me. I used to be the person who used to stop people and say, oh, Monday to Thursday, we are supposed to wear formals. What just happened? And then they used to like chicken out looking at me. They would be like, oh, she's going to come and give a lecture on clothes. But I mean, that was a dress code, right? So for me, I was like, okay, the organization demands something, you need to kind of, do justice. And the funny thing is that, when I was going through this entire process, discussing it with my male colleagues, a lot of them used to say, oh, it's a female employee. Why don't you come and tell her? And I'm like, oh, she's a part of your team. How can I just come and tell her that, she's not wearing the right outfit? And they're like, no, we feel very awkward. We don't know how it's going to go, and things like that. All of this was happening parallelly. And then I came to know that a lot of people, because I was handling like the training to floor movement, and a lot of people, and I had another colleague with me, and I figured very late in that those teams that people were told, even without my presence, they were told that, oh, if you don't meet the target, Dipti is going to come. And I was so surprised, like a few months down, when they used to come to my teams and they used to say, "Oh, you're so cool. It doesn't look like the way we were told you are, or the way you look, the way you carry yourself. You look so serious and straightforward, and you mean business kind, but you're so much fun to be with." And I said, I really don't know who's telling you all of this. So, I had that moment of so jao nahi to gabbar aa jayega. 'Cause, and then I also realized while I was doing the program that when we are talking about the impact or the image part of it, sometimes you're in the room and you're creating that impression. But sometimes you're not even in the room. People are talking about you and they're creating an impression in the third person's mind and they are actually thinking about you in that format. So, image is such a dynamic thing, which we don't really take seriously. But I mean, it did all of that to me. And there was a phase when they didn't want to come in my teams because they were scared. And then there was a phase when they came in my teams, they didn't want to leave me, and they didn't want me to leave the organization. Because that spectrum was so funny but insightful to look at. That okay, how impressions are formed, whether you're in the room, you're not in the room, all of that is still happening, right? And all of that triggered me, and I was like, okay, now I think all of this is kind of making sense, and I can't really work 15, 16 hours and then focus on my own work. And a lot of other political stuff kept happening parallelly in the office because I was taking my leaves as per the days that I had my classes and all of that. Then one day I just decided, okay, I'm going to quit. I don't know how. I had no plan, honestly. I had zero plans of how I was going to do this, but I was so gutted because I had researched this for like 6, 7 years. And I said, okay, it was typically like dekh whatever happens. So I would say I was about 26, 27 then, how it is in your 20s. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll
And the
figure
rush
something
of
out.
adrenaline to
Yeah.
just
And that is something that I tell
quick.
every batch at the beginning. Please don't follow in my footsteps. I mean, that may not be the wisest decision, especially I would say as women, when you are, financially independent, you suddenly can't become dependent on anybody. That kind of kills you, that in between phase where you feel like you've lost everything. So, but for me, I think I was lucky because I had a few marriages to attend, and then I went to the US to train with my trainer, like our person who has created the curriculum. So that happened in the first 6, 8 months. Then I had a surgery on my foot, so I was off my feet for 4 months. So I had like a year that I was okay. I mean, even if I was not working, I was kind of okay, and I sailed through
Give
that
you time
entire.
and space to just
Yeah, it
grow.
did give me, luckily, I would say. But the minute I was off my feet, I started, training for the institute from where I've done my program. And I had the first movers advantage because I don't think anybody wanted to train. And we were a couple of us for I think the first 2 years I've traveled extensively across the country. 5 days in a week, I was in 3 or 4 different cities, and yeah, I think that way you always get recognition, and like I said, the first mover's advantage. So I used to love traveling. I didn't have any baggages, no responsibilities. I was just doing like my dream job. So I was still doing image teaching, coaching people. People are always at the heart of everything for me. So I was still talking to a lot of people, and meeting people and being myself, and thoroughly enjoyed those 2 years. And then it was like we had enough trainers, and then I was in Pune, and I was doing my own work parallelly, and all of that has just been a blessing. I think unless I moved overseas, which I did in between, but unless that happened in the last 13, 14 years, I haven't gone back to a job. And I think that says it all, that even if it is a transition, there will always be ups and downs. I'm not saying that everything is very fun and glossy, and
Mm.
it doesn't make you rich
Nothing is
overnight.
like
It
that.
was a lot of work, of course. But yeah, I think if you are at it, like, this is what I feel, your consistency matters a lot. Like, if
Yes.
you are not consistent, you're going to fall apart anyways, right?
True.
So you have to be at it. And I have initially, at least, I've taken care of it as if it was a baby. It was my own baby, and I had to raise it the way I wanted it to. And I think that's the advice that I always give all my consultants. Like, you enroll in a program, any program for that matter, but you can't get bored of it. You can't just say that, oh, now I can't do it. Now something else is happening, so I'll hang my boots. So stay, strategically consistent. And
And
I think the
discipline.
shift will automatically happen.
Wow, great. I mean, there's something really like this is a true transition from your corporate to something you are today.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is amazing to hear. And you have mentored over 3,000 inspiring image consultants, I guess, right?
I have.
And the soft skills trainers as well. Oh, wow,
Right.
amazing. So, what are some common myths about personal image and grooming that you have encountered? Because we get that a lot. And how do you dispel them? How do you do that? What's the
So I'll tell you
magic?
two. Yeah, so two which are connected, of course. I think that's an easy one to answer. The first one, like I said, when I was very tomboyish, and I wouldn't really pay too much attention to, let's say, even though I loved makeup from the very beginning, I never put it on myself because it would kind of contradict, who I was showcasing myself to be. And then when I was doing this course, I still remember I was in one of these multi-brand stores, and I was at the makeup counter, and this friend of mine who was from the previous organization was there. He said, "What are you doing at the makeup counter? What is wrong with you? Chalo, chalo, let's." And I was like, so that whole image that you carried then. So I think the very essence of image is also your visual appearance. Right. So whether you are there in person with somebody, you're virtually there with somebody. And I think the biggest myth, which even in fact, today in one of my sessions, I was talking about it, that somebody said, people will just come back to you, especially from IT, finance, banking. They'll say it really doesn't matter. I have so much intelligence to talk about. I have so much of knowledge that I can speak about. It really doesn't matter, right? That's the common myth, that people feel it really doesn't
But
matter.
it matters
So
a lot for making
always
sure that
does.
we are
And yeah, and I would say that, especially after COVID, like even before COVID, but more so after COVID, when you have just got stuck, in the four walls of your house, the only thing to entertain yourself, you were shopping, you were eating food, you were taking pictures, you were watching reels. And if you look at all that you have been doing from home as well as when you are outside with people, so even if you go to a restaurant, yeah, even if you go to buy clothes, you're looking at everything and making a choice,
of
right?
course.
So you cannot not look at things and say that it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter how something looks,
And
right?
it's a
So
human
simple.
tendency to just look and judge. The
Yeah, I
first
mean, when
thing
when you
comes
say
is,
that seeing is believing,
of
that
course.
that's exactly what it is, right? So because we don't nowadays, earlier people used to say that jo bhi aap sun rahe ho us pe vishwas mat rakho, and things like that. But now it is all about what I see. So whether or not I comprehend that it is good or bad for me, if my eyes think, because nowadays your eyes think, right? It's not your brain that is thinking. So your eyes are thinking. The minute your eyes have thought of something as good, you want to grab it,
Of
right?
course.
That has taken your patience away, that has taken your judgment away. But eyes are the windows that judge more than the windows to your soul. They are the windows that make snap judgments. And this is not something that is new to us. We've been doing this from the jungle. So you are perceiving the threat. You are not thinking too much about it, but you're ready for action. And that's exactly what we do today.
Of course, the visual appearance tells us about the
Correct.
person and how they present themselves. So it's important
Absolutely.
that we appear that way.
Absolutely. And even if in a situation like ours, even if we are probably meeting in a virtual setup for the first time, Things like you've seen my Instagram, I've seen your Instagram, we've seen each other's pictures. And it's not that you've made an impression about me now. It is just that you've made an impression on a third party site or somewhere else. And, you're looking for that kind of an experience in continuation. So I would say with, the visual, it also means that you will have to have a continued effort. So you don't have to go like all glam. So that's the one myth that I feel a lot of people feel, is that an image consultant is somebody who's super glamorous and kind of a page 3 person. I think in very common words, an image consultant is a well presented person who technically knows how to help you become more presentable. Right.
Yes.
And presentable can just be a little bit of grooming. It doesn't have to be like a makeup kit of 20,000 rupees. It just doesn't have to be that. Right. Or you don't have to like go to a hairdresser every day to kind of blow your hair, into a curl or a
Hmm.
straight, whatever. It really doesn't have to be that. But if you smell good, simple things like if you smell good so that the other person doesn't have to deal with your body odor. If you are, visually a little more attractive, chances of people getting attracted to you and coming up to you to speak are much higher. I mean, if I don't like what I see, right? So if I take a social media example, if you don't like a reel in the first 1 second, you're just going to scroll up. And because of these habits now, and this is how technology has made us, right? So we also do that with people. We
It's a
screen and we
daily
go to the
practice
next.
for us now.
Yeah. We go to the next. So if you're not visually presentable, people are not going to be able to stick on you for a very long time. So then the question of whether you're intelligent, whether you're capable, do you have the knowledge, you have the money, it is very secondary, right? It's important. I'm not saying that these things are not important, but they come in second. But your eyes have already seen all of those facets in you, unfortunately,
True.
even if it is right or wrong. And I would say for most case scenarios, it could be the wrong judgment, but we can't help it. We just go by what, we feel, that gut instinct, or, that innate ability of picking up cues that comes to us. It's all visual.
I really like relate to this statement of yours. And of course, eyes are like empowering us these days. It's like
Absolutely.
controlling our minds and brains to just work accordingly. And yes, we tend to do that, of course, and we cannot deny that in today's time because we're all over social media and we're living virtually, if we see.
Absolutely.
So it's
And
really
I would say a
important.
lot of people would say
Very
that,
important.
this is a fake life that you're living. So
Yeah,
be it. But everybody is, out there to put their best foot forward.
true,
And there are so many businesses which are only, running because of the advertising marketing, which is all luring you through AI also to visually buy in, things. That
true,
whole FOMO that they create, the fear of missing out, is only because you look at something and you feel that, oh, I don't have this,
true.
right?
And it
I've not
appears like
experienced something.
on a in
Exactly.
regular interval so that we
On a
cannot even
regular interval.
ignore that for a bit.
Absolutely. And the simplest example, for anybody who comes across and says that it doesn't matter, my question is, if it didn't matter, why do social media or any social sites, why do we have filters? Why do your phone have filters?
True.
Right? Because you don't want people to see, your flaws or your shortcomings at the first go. Later on, if they come to know, they come to know. And most people still say, I don't use them. My phone has it, which is fine. But 80% of the world's population is using it,
But you
which means
can
there
see
has to
from
be
far.
some truth to the
Yeah,
importance of the visual.
true.
But honestly, Barkha, I've always maintained that visual is, yes, one part, and it's the dominant part of the way we come across. But again, if my language, if the way I make people feel, the way I speak to them, if that doesn't match the visual, I think it's still a disappointment. Right. So for me,
Very
this is
agree.
why I say that it's not a superficial gloss. And I understand where the superficial gloss is coming from, because people feel that it's all glamorous and it's just about the look. And like I said, it is an inside out sort of an approach. So on the inside, it is your personality, the way you speak, the way you make people feel. All of that is a part of your personality. And that has to be consistent. I can't be different in different situations with different people.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's a 100% approach to the way you treat people. For me, at the end of the day, it all comes down to how do you treat people, how do you make them feel,
of course.
and
And it
that's the
matters
essence
to
of
them, of
impression.
course. It really matters. So, talking of all the examples you've given to us, can you share a story that stands out to you where you witnessed a significant transformation in somebody else's confidence or personal image after working with them?
I mean, I do work with, aspiring consultants, and I do see a lot of transitions, I would say, but, that's bound to happen because they are supposed to kind of internalize the change, then they can, use it with clients. But if I have to speak about my own clients, in that case, I think the happiest I am is when the client is able to, hear it from others that there's something different about you. So one of my recent clients, I'm still working with her for about a year now, and she has two young kids and a busy mom, but she has a leadership position in one of the IT, banking, finance, sort of a sector. And she did come to me saying that, I don't like the way I overall am. Like, I don't know, there's something missing. I can't figure out what's missing, but I don't think I present myself well. And I think honestly, her husband has a very good eye for details, choices, and their choices were always very different. And she also comes from a particular background where, you're constantly taught that you should save money. So she generally doesn't end up spending on herself. She'll, even if she's earning really well, she'll buy things for her kids, she'll buy for her husband, but she doesn't buy for herself. So we did a series of sessions, and then in between, there was a little break that she also took. And she was doing really well in terms of understanding what kind of styles to go for, what kind of colors to choose and stuff. And recently we connected again, and she said, you know what, I know that I have not done my, sessions completely. But I really don't know if I'm still struggling with, like, style and color. And I don't think I can put two and two together. Do you think I don't have it in me? And I said, listen, everybody has it in them. You just need a little bit of practice. And because you've been off, the program for a while, let's get back on track. And what I made her do, I said, okay, let's do one thing from last year, Jan. Why don't you put together, compile pictures of everything that you've been sending me, that this is what I bought, this is what I, wore, and things like that, put them together. And then show me a graph, like you sit down and you analyze how you were before you came through, this program, and now how you see yourself in a year. I want you to recall all the memories of maybe what your husband said, after you dressed up in a certain manner, what your colleagues said. She said, coming to think of that, I think my colleagues have started noticing that my bags are matching my shoes and my outfits. And they said that there's something different about you. What are you doing? It looks nice. And I said, so which means you're making progress. Sometimes we fail to see that we are making progress unless we don't think we've hit the benchmark. Right. So she saw that, and now she's very eager. So in fact, even today she messaged me, how are you placed on the weekend? Let's, go shopping and stuff. So I think that is such a happy moment for me where they are able to look back in time to see that, oh yeah, I have changed. But the only downside is that, a lot of people watch, let's say, Instagram reels, or they watch television shows, which get over in like 30 minutes to an hour, or Instagram reels, which are like 30 to 90 seconds. And you're seeing like a before and after. So people expect that, in 90 seconds, my life is going to transform, which is really not the case. Or even in an hour's TV program, there is so much of back end work and recording for weeks that gets edited and shown to you, like in, like a 30 to 60-minute program. So that is something that I always tell my clients, that you need to be patient with the entire process. Like, you can't expect overnight results because your own body will refuse it. Yeah, your own mind will refuse it. Your style will refuse it. There'll be a lot of resistance that you'll have.
Yeah.
And another of my client who came from a very, I would say, conservative background, we took 2 years to actually, take her, if I have to say, from saris to trousers and dresses. I had to take about 2 years for her to become a little more okay with the fact that she could wear shorter lengths, her family to become okay that, yeah, fine, she's got into Western clothing. But had I put her from saris into a skirt or a dress, I think that would have been a disaster. Right. So yeah, sometimes with some clients, we do stick around. Like, at least I do. I don't know about others, but I do stick around with them, and I become friends with a lot of my clients. Like, sometimes they are absolutely, struggling to discuss their issues with somebody. They would just call me. It's not even a session, and they're like, you know what, this happened. Can we please meet for coffee? I want to talk to you about this. Like, how you would call a friend. So with me, it's more like a friendly thing that I like to maintain with my clients, because it kind of adds that human touch.
Of
And
course.
sometimes they're struggling to, especially with women, so they are struggling to find friends or somebody that they can get professional advice from and also discuss personal problems. So that, I mean, that's my methodology of working with people, or even my consultants for that matter. I don't look at like a senior, junior, trainer, trainee kind of a vibe. I think it just doesn't work with me. So I just stay very transparent.
Seriously. I mean, it's amazing. It's wonderful to like just connect with that humanly instinct. I mean, it
Right.
gives the safe space for everybody to just vent out what they're feeling, and
Absolutely.
then only we're just open to change, which is necessary
Correct.
for
Because
growth.
I feel, maybe because I've had so many labels from childhood, for me, it naturally occurs that I don't want to label anybody or anything. Because the minute you label them, they take a backseat or they take a step back from opening up to you because they feel attacked. And I think staying open is the best thing to do for that matter. Like, no, consulting for me is like a no judgment zone.
Of course. And it's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, you're on a right path, I must say.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that with us. But Deepti ji, before we let you go, can you tell us that as someone who's been a trailblazer in your field, what's one unexpected lesson you learned that changed your path?
So the unexpected, I would say that, number one is you cannot make everyone happy. I think that's the one lesson I learned. I've been this person who's, been a people's person. And to me, it is very important. I'm an empath. So I empathize with anyone and everyone, and I feel the way people feel. But of course, with my early life, work kind of experience, or now as a consultant or a coach, it helps me enable them also. But the only thing was that for a very long time, I used to also bend backwards for people. So that's a very typical empath tendency, right? So when you are there for everybody, you would not be able to say no, not have boundaries. I think which is something that is very detrimental for the growth of any person, especially for women, because we are very stereotyped and conditioned into being a certain way. So yeah, I think of late in the last few years, I have kind of decided to have boundaries and say no. It could also be say no to work projects, or maybe to the money that is being offered. Or if I don't want to work, I would just say no. I'm sorry, but I can't do this. Right? Which you find very difficult, because who wants to say no to work at times. But yeah, so then I think that is one thing that I have learned or decided, that because you can't make everyone happy, there is no need to be available to everybody and to be able to, focus on yourself. I think it's also a way of respecting your own self, for that matter. So yeah, that's a lesson, that it has to be you above everyone else, and not from a selfish standpoint though,
Yeah.
from self-respect and self-care standpoint. So you have to take care of yourself, especially as we are all going to age one day or the other. If you don't take care of yourself right now, it might just become too late. So yeah, fine. Financially you should take care of yourself, of course, but mentally, emotionally, and physically, I think on those three realms, you have to always be your biggest cheerleader, and be there for yourself. Nobody else is going to be there for you.
And at the end, देखा जाए तो एरोप्लेन में भी मास्क के लिए बोलते हैं फर्स्ट यूज
Of
योर
course.
ऑक्सीजन मास्क देन गिव इट टू
Absolutely.
बिकॉज इट इज
Absolutely.
important. If you're not alive,
Right.
then how will you help those people
Absolutely.
around you? At the end, life is like a lot of experiences we
A lesson.
come
Yes.
across, and then the
Absolutely.
lessons we take from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Oh, it was so good to talk to you and knowing everything that you have shared. I think, and I'm sure that many people would connect with it and will be inspired by it. I mean, it's amazing whatever you have shared. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much.
doing that.
Thank you so much, Barkha. And I'm sure if people do feel connected, then it's just a blessing for me that they can feel connected. But yeah,
Oh,
that's
so it's
that's my
a
two
wrap
cents.
with
Yeah.
Deepti Ji and the transformative journey you have been. It's amazing from being a tomboy to leading the image consulting industry. Oh my God, it's
Thank
amazing.
you.
And wow, thank you so much for making time. Means a lot.
Thank you so much for having me, Barkha. It's a pleasure.
And to all our audiences, what's one challenge you have turned yours into a strength? So share your story in the comments, and thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, stay inspired and keep those boundaries pushing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye. Take
Barkha.
care.
Best. Bye bye.